Wow, the Sea of Galilee. It's amazing to be back here. So many memories. I'm sorry, my name is Peter, and I was one of the 12 disciples that walked with Jesus. And first off, I want to ask you all if you know what a disciple is. So you all have a leader, you're all with the group leader tonight, and I just want you to talk for just a second and ask yourself if you know what a disciple is, and tell your leader what a disciple is. And leaders, when you have a good answer, I just want you to raise your hand. So kids, what do you think a disciple is? So what do we think a disciple is over here? Okay, a person who follows somebody else, right? So a person who follows. So did you all know that my brother Andrew was a disciple of the guy you saw yesterday? Do you remember who that was? John the Baptist. That's right. My brother Andrew was a disciple of John the Baptist. That means that he followed in the footsteps of John the Baptist. He taught, John the Baptist taught my brother Andrew, and Andrew tried to do the things that John the Baptist did. That's what a disciple means. And one day when he was a disciple of John the Baptist, guess who came up and appeared to John the Baptist? Do you remember? Jesus, right? The Lamb of God. And you know what my brother did? The first thing he did, this makes me so happy, and I feel so loved. Do you know what he did when he learned that the Lamb of God was here? He came and told me. He said, Simon. And I said, my name is Peter. So I'll tell you about that. He said, Simon, come. We have found the Messiah. You've got to meet Jesus. And so I did. And I went and I met Jesus. And you know what Jesus said to me? You are no longer going to be called Simon. From now on, you're known as Peter. I didn't know why he would change my name right away. But when I look back at who I was and who I became, I realized that those are two very different people. You see, Simon, in my early days, I was a fisherman. And fishermen back then weren't like the fishermen we see now. You know, when you watch TV and you see Bass Pro Network, you see these guys in these nice shiny boats dressed in khakis and wearing a polo shirt, and they're just kind of flick casting out there. Nice and easy. But that's not how we lived our life as fishermen. Fishermen were rough. We were tough. We had days on end on our boats. Sometimes even all night long we would fish. We would pull these massive nets of fish out of the water, and we were worn out, and we'd be cut up, and we'd have big calluses on our hands, and we were manly men. Right? Is that what you think of when you hear the disciple of Jesus? No, right? We don't see that kind of an image in our mind when we hear a disciple. But I was a disciple of Jesus. That means I got to follow Jesus. And one day, when I'm fishing with my brother Andrew, we're casting our nets out, we're in our boats, and Jesus says, hey, follow me. I will make you fishers of men. Now, I want to ask you a question. And again, you're going to need to talk to your leader about this. If Jesus came to you and said, follow me, you can only bring one item with you. What item would you take with you to carry to follow Jesus? So talk to your leaders. A couple quick ones, leaders. Let me know, what are you hearing? The Bible, okay. Water. Phone. All right, listen up. I'm curious, out of my junior high group, how many said their cell phone? Couple? All right, couple. Well, it was interesting. You know, we spent our life living as fishermen. That's how we fed ourselves. That's how we fed our families. That's how we earned a living. We spent our lives as fishermen. So our boats and our nets were the most important thing. So do you know what I took with me? Nothing. Jesus didn't say, follow me, meet me back here at 6 o'clock when you go home and pack a bag. He said, follow me. And we had to follow him immediately. And he said, I will make you fishers of men. And that scared me a little bit. Because I don't know how to fish for men. I know how to fish for fish. I don't know how to fish for men. Right? But is that what Jesus told me to do? If I'm to follow him, he will make me a fisher of men. What is my job? Is it to go be a fisher of men? No. Follow me. I will make you fishers of men. My only job is to follow Jesus. That's all he asked of me. Follow me. That's all you have to do. Jesus didn't care that as a fisher of men, I would need to be well-spoken. I would need to be able to talk to people in an eloquent way. I would need to be able to present myself like someone who they'd want to talk to. He didn't care about that, did he? Because all I needed was a heart that was willing to follow him, and he was going to make me into a fisher of men. And that took courage, and that's our lesson tonight, isn't it? Can you imagine Jesus showing up right now and saying, follow me, and you drop everything that you own, and you follow Jesus for no other reason than he said, follow me. That's what it was like. And it took a lot of courage to do that, to follow Jesus. And follow Jesus I did. And it was so powerful. I became a disciple of Jesus. And we remember what a disciple is, right? I got to follow him. He was my teacher. He was my preacher. He was my mentor. Everything your pastor is to you, Jesus was that for me. We walked together. We ate together. I lived with Jesus. Wow. I'll never forget that one special day, the Sea of Galilee. Some of you may know this story. It was a sad day for us because we had just recently learned that John the Baptist had been executed. And thousands of people came to talk to Jesus. And Jesus, he's Jesus. He couldn't turn them away. He healed their sick. He preached. He taught. And as evening came near, the disciples, we all said the same thing. We said, look, these people are getting hungry. We're a ways away from the villages. We should send them back so they can go get some food. And Jesus said, no, don't send them away. We'll feed them. We're like, Jesus, we only have a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. But that day, Jesus performed a miracle and fed 5,000 people or more with a couple loaves of bread and some fish. And that's a story in itself, but that's not where my day ended. You see, as evening approached, Jesus wanted to go and pray on a mountain. And I'm going to stop for a second there, and I'm going to remind you that what I just said. Jesus wanted to go pray on a mountain. Because God knows, or Jesus knows how important it is to pray to God. And if we're going to be disciples, followers of Jesus, and we're going to do what Jesus does, we have to pray, just like Jesus did. So never lose the fact that Jesus prayed as well. And so Jesus goes and he prays. We're like, well, we'll come with you. He goes, no, you all get in the boat and go on ahead of me. I'll catch up. So we got in the boat and we go out on the Sea of Galilee. It's actually a lake. It's a beautiful lake. And we're looking. It was one of the most beautiful places because the mountains in the background are one of God's greatest landscapes. It's beautiful. But the thing about those mountains is that they have a tendency to change the winds a little bit. And the wind kicked up. And when that happened, the waves got a little bit bigger. And then the winds kicked up even more. And the waves got even bigger. Until the waves were bigger than our boat. They were smashing our boat left and right. And we were afraid. Now, that's not fair to say. We were terrified. Why were we terrified? Because if that boat turned over, we may have drowned. Right there. We were terrified that we were going to drown that night. And maybe even the scariest thing in the world happened next. We're in the middle of the sea and we see a figure walking toward us on water. Walking toward us on water. We thought it must be a ghost. But then we heard him say, be courageous, for it is I, don't be afraid. And I knew it was Jesus. I could hear his voice. At that moment, I'll never forget the courage that I had in Jesus. Because my response when I heard Jesus' voice said, Jesus, if it is true, if it is really you, let me come to you on the water. Now, Jesus could have said, I'll come to you. It's easier for me to walk on water than it is for you. So I tell you what, I'll come to you. But he didn't say that. I wanted to go to Jesus, just like he wants you to want to go to Jesus. And he let me walk on water. So I climbed out of the boat, and I started to walk toward Jesus with all the courage of 1,000 soldiers. I was able to walk on water toward Jesus. And then, just like we do today sometimes, I got nervous. Okay, I started focusing on the waves. They were huge, and the wind, it was violent. I was like, well, what if I go under? And I began to sink at that moment. When I lost my courage in Jesus, I began to sink. And when I did, I said, Lord, save me. I said, Lord, save me. Do you know what he did? He reached down with his hand, and he did just that. Little did I know at that moment that that would be the shortest recorded prayer in the entire Bible, and perhaps the most powerful. Lord, save me. Sometimes in our prayers we get very long-winded. We like to use big words. We like to tell Jesus things that he already knows. Had I done that night, I would have been 27 feet underwater before I got to the part that mattered, which is, Lord, save me. So if you don't know what to say to God, if you don't know what to say to Jesus, it's really simple. Start with the prayer that I said that night. Lord, save me. And this is what I know. He will reach down like he did that night for me. And he will save you. Courage is found in Jesus. And I found that courage that night.